Bishop Robert, thank you for meeting to have this conversation. We're talking about the Deanery Strategic Life Plan 2030. I'm very excited about it. Tell me what it's all about.
Great. Well, I'm really excited about this too. Our deanery plans are a chance for each of our deaneries to look at the communities that we're called to serve and to think about how we best shape ourselves as a church to do that gospel task of proclaiming the gospel afresh in each generation.
Why is it that we're looking this far into the future? Why 2030?
It's really important to say, as a Diocese of Gloucester, we're not in a crisis, but we know that there are some changes that we need to make to the way in which we use our resources if we're to be most effective and make sure we don't get into trouble a number of years down the line. This is a moment where we know, and unless we change course a bit, we are going to get ourselves into some difficulty. So really important that the deaneries start with the communities that we're called to serve, not with the church. So we're going to start by looking at where people live, where new housing's been built, where do children go to school, where do we go to work, where do we do our shopping, and then think about what sort of church do we need in order to engage with the way people live their lives today. Essentially three things that we're asking each of the deaneries to do. First, as I've been talking about, to look at the communities that we serve, all that stuff about where people live and how we live our lives. And then secondly, to look at that and say, what are the gospel opportunities in this? Where are the places in which we can most effectively share the gospel? And then from that, to look at where we are now as a church. Only at that stage to come back and look at where are we now as a church, and then think about actually how we move from where we are now to where we want to be.
This feels like an opportunity for the deaneries to be really creative, imaginative. How do you see the role of those deaneries, our deaneries, in this work?
We spent quite a lot of time over the last years reshaping our deaneries, and it seems to me that this is very much a chance of deaneries becoming of age to do that thing that we very much hope for when we reshape them, about being those strategic units of planning. With enough local knowledge, but also that breadth of understanding to be able to do this really well. Deaneries will understand the local context and understand how the local fits together. I remember when I was an area dean a number of years ago, talking to my deanery synod and saying, actually, we need to think as a deanery synod about how we shape our life before someone who is actually not as engaged as we are tells us how to do it. Now, that's not going to happen here, I promise you. But it is, I think, the deaneries which have this great opportunity to really understand how we can be most effectively the church for this generation.
Prayer undergirds this process. That will be a huge part of this these groups coming together and imagining together. Do you think it will change how the deaneries behave within themselves?
It's one of the things that we've spoken about wanting in the work that you're going to do as a facilitator, making sure that prayer and the opportunity to reflect on the scriptures is at the heart and the beginning and goes through all that we do. And absolutely, yes, because this is about discerning what God is saying to us in this generation. So it is about listening to each other across our deaneries, listening to the wider church, but crucially listening and discerning what is God saying to the church in this generation.
So I guess one of the questions that I will be asked is whether in this process we're planning to close churches and reduce clergy numbers. Is that what this is all about?
Well, let's be absolutely clear, there are no hidden agendas here. Our numbers of clergy, we're not expecting to have to reduce significantly. We may need to reduce by one or two, simply because that's the number of clergy that are likely to be available over the next few years. As to closing churches, really important to remember that the decision to close a church is always a local decision in the first place. It's one made by the PCC. And it's one which we would then, as a diocese together with through the work of the Diocese Mission and Pastoral Group, work on supporting. And it's quite a convoluted process as well. There may be some cases where that's the right thing to do, but I'm not expecting there to be many, and if that is the case, it will always be locally led. So I wouldn't want people to get concerned unduly about that.
Or too cynical, perhaps.
No, and actually that's one of the things really important to say about these processes, particularly if you're someone like me who's been around these processes a few times, is it's quite easy to give in to cynicism. And really important that we, through the work that we do, make sure that doesn't happen to us. This is an amazing opportunity for us as a church to reflect and to shape our ministry for the future. And the commitment that I give on behalf of the Diocesan Missional Pastoral Group, which oversees this, which I chair, is that we're going to take the plans that come from the deaneries really seriously. These will be the plans that we will seek to implement, and I give you my absolute word on that. That's what we're going to do, and that's why through the process of conversation between us, we need to make sure that those are the best plans that we can put together, really discern, listening to God, listening to each other, that we can then bring about over these coming 10 years or so as we seek to shape the church for future generations.
Bishop, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to coming and working with the key lay people and the clergy in the deaneries to begin imaginatively, prayerfully thinking about these plans and how we pull them together, and seeing our diocese flourish over the next 10 years.
And Dana, can I say thank you to you? Thank you for your part in facilitating these plans with the deaneries. And just give a real encouragement to everybody in the deaneries to get involved with this. We've talked about area deans and lay chairs and synod members and clergy. But for these plans really to work well, we need to listen to as many voices as we possibly can. So please encourage the widest engagement, that we can really discern together what is it that God is calling us to be. How's God calling us to shape our life as a church? That we may be those who share that good news of the life that there is to be found in Jesus Christ with those who live in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you.